It's interesting to me because I've had to make many shifts in my entire career as an entrepreneur. But whether you're an entrepreneur or not, even just as a human being, also as a leader, as a business owner, or as a CEO, as an entrepreneur, I feel that like a lot of the people that I have coached, a lot of people that I've worked with, a lot of people I've mentored, a lot of people that I've worked with, like a lot of times they fear shifts, they fear change, and I even remember my last startup, it was like you mentioned, when you start, it's just about starting, but then you just have to learn to adapt along the way. But a lot of the people that I would work with would fear that. They would fear change, they would fear, adapting.
Totally. In fact, let me have the book for just a second, because if you look at the book, Leader Shift, the 11 central changes every leader must embrace. That is a very key word. Embrace the change. Because most of us don't. Right. Most of us resist the change. As you talked about, we fear the change. And because of this, we miss our moments. I had a mentor, much older than me. You find that hard to believe now, but John Wooden, the great coach at UCLA. Yeah. For the last 13 years, he was my mentor.
Wow.
And one of his statements, Gerard, was that when opportunity comes, it's too late to prepare. And he said, what you do is you prepare all your life so when the opportunity comes, you can seize the moment. That seed thought is part of this book. And so what I want people to look at opportunity and change and transition, I want them, instead of to fear it as a foe, as something that's trying to do me in and hurt me and set me back, I want them to look at it as a friend. Now, let's talk about attitude for a second. I've always said that the only time attitude shows up is during adversity. During good times, everybody has basically good attitude. I even know people that have a bad attitude that have a good attitude when things are all going their way, okay? So the only time it ever shows up is during adversity. It's the same thing with transition and change. When it shows up in our lives, our ability to embrace it and understand that it's an opportunity, because every opportunity I've ever had in my life, every opportunity you've had in your life was surrounded by problems, setbacks, difficulties, barriers. I've never had an open door that was just open. Right. And as I walked close to that open door, nothing but angels sang and birds flew and the sun shined, and I walked through it and said, oh my gosh, I hardly knew I walked through that open door. It was so easy. No. If it's an open door, as I start to go toward it, it shuts. Now what happens is, when it shuts, most people stop. And one of the things I teach is the resources only come to you as you keep walking. And how many times I've seen people say, well, I tried that and it wasn't working, so I stopped. And it's the end of the story. Well, the end of the story was not the adversity, not the failures, not the difficulties. The end of the story was I stopped. No one ever wrote a book on I quit my way to success.
Right.
Or no one ever wrote a book on I feared my way to the top. Right. So what we have to understand is that every one of us have within us, I do, you do, all of your listeners, all of us have within us a fear element and a faith element. We do. I have things that I look at and I go, ooh, that's suck some air and kind of gulp a little bit. I have that happen to me on a continual basis. But I also have that faith voice that says, you can do this. You can do this. Start, try, get in the game. Now, what am I going to do? If my fear voice is greater than my faith voice, then that fear of failure and adversity and mistakes will stop me. But if my faith voice is larger, I'm not quieting the fear voice. When people say, well, get rid of your fears, I always say, my gosh, you're delusional. That's not a problem. But what you do is you minimize and how do you minimize your fears? You minimize your fears by activating your faith. And the more that I operate in the do it zone, the less of the I can't do it. In the beginning, when I started off, I was young, I would look at a project or something and I'd ask myself, can I? Wow, that's a big mountain. Can I? Well, anymore, I don't ask the question, can I? I ask the question, how can I? I've already accepted the fact I'm going. So it's not a question, should I start? It's a question is, as I start, how am I going to overcome? How am I going to get through this? How am I going to be successful in this? And one more thing on this. I was talking to a very successful CEO the other day, because in our John Maxwell company, we have an executive circle club where every month I talk to a successful CEO. They listen in. They do 20 minutes on their story. Then I do some leadership applications and I ask them questions. And in the question period, Gerard, I ask him about his mistakes and his failures. And I said, let's talk about what I call do-overs. I mean, we'll look back at your career and say, okay, I'd like to go back there and do that over. And if I could do that over, if I could do that decision over, if I could do that action over. And I said, so talk to me about what's one of the do-overs you want in your life, where you go back and say, oh, I wish I could go back and have another shot at that. And he said something very interesting to me. He said, you know, John, I don't think I would change anything. It got real quiet on the phone. He said, no. He said, now, I made a lot of mistakes, made a lot of bad decisions. I've had a lot of, regrets and oops and all that. But he said, I just don't think I'd go back and change anything. He said, because what I learned from my failures, the character that I developed because of my missteps and bad decisions, have made me who I am today. Yeah. He said, I'm not sure I would be the person I am today without those failures and without those mistakes. And Gerard, I know that you would say the same thing. And let me say, I'm saying the same thing now. So when people begin to have the fear factor of, I might fail and what happens, and all this stuff comes in, I say to them, you will fail. You will have missteps. You will make bad decisions. You will get on the slippery side. Right. All of this is going to happen to you. So get started. First of all, if you don't get started, nothing's going to happen. And if you do get started, some good things are going to happen, but some bad things are going to happen. And it's the bad stuff that will help you to develop the character to handle the bad stuff helps you handle in the long run the big stuff.
Right.
And if you've not handled the bad stuff, the big stuff, you'll never get to it. And it's like I teach you, I wrote a book a few years ago called Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn. And I tell people all the time, don't count your losses, count your lessons. Yeah. And we all have losses. And so to that person that's starting out, you're going to have losses. It's okay. In fact, those losses are going to make you better if, again, you have the right attitude to it. Again, if I have the wrong attitude, losses defeat me and I'm flat on my back.